In 2010, the company that builds the Corolla, the most sensible car on planet Earth, released a 500-unit supercar that cost $375,000, took 10 years to develop, and reportedly lost money on every single one they sold. And buried in the middle of that car was an engine so extreme that Lexus said a mechanical tachometer needle physically couldn't keep up with it. This V10 goes from idle to 9,000 RPM in about 0.6 of a second. Blink, you missed it. So Lexus deleted the needle and built a digital display instead. This is the Lexus LFA, and it might be the most obsessive engine ever fitted to a road car. So how does the world's most rational car company end up building its most irrational machine? It all comes down to one enemy, and that enemy is inertia. Not speed, not power. Inertia, the stubbornness of mass in motion. Here's the thing. Every spinning, reciprocating part inside an engine fights you twice. It resists speeding up when you ask for revs, and it resists slowing down when you lift off. Heavy pistons, heavy rods, a heavy crank, a heavy flywheel. They all turn an engine into something you request power from, and then wait. And for the team behind the LFA, that delay was the whole problem with modern cars. They wanted an engine that responded like a Formula One car. Instantly, both directions, like the throttle was wired straight to your foot. Which means the enemy wasn't building big power. Plenty of companies can do that. The enemy was every single gram that moves inside the engine. Declare war on those grams, and you end up somewhere no road car had ever been. And on paper, Toyota was the last company on Earth that should have built this. In the year 2000, when this project started in secret, Toyota's reputation was reliability, efficiency, sensibleness. Nobody was asking them for a money-no-object supercar. Their Halo car was a luxury sedan famous for being silent. And yet, inside that company, a small team started anyway. No clear business case, no obvious customer. Just a question. What would it take for Toyota to build the most responsive engine in the world? The choices they made tell you how serious they were. They didn't pick a V8. It couldn't rev the way they wanted. They didn't pick a V12. Too much reciprocating mass, too much inertia, the exact enemy they'd declared war on. They picked a V10, the F1 layout of that era, and they went to Yamaha, the company that builds engines that scream for a living, to help develop it. And the result was absurd. A 4.8-liter V10, physically smaller than a V12, and lighter than Toyota's own ordinary 3.5-liter V6. Titanium connecting rods. Solid titanium valves, forged pistons, a dry sump so it could sit lower in the car. Every component chosen by asking one question: how little can this weigh, and how fast can it change speed? The sensible company was building the least sensible engine in the world. And that's before the whole project nearly collapsed. So here's what a war on inertia actually gets you. And this is a detail you can check in literally any photo of the LFA's interior. The finished engine revs from idle to its 9,000 RPM redline in roughly 0.6 of a second. That is not normal. That's the crank, 10 pistons, 20 valves, and everything attached to them changing speed almost as fast as a light switch. And Lexus's own explanation for the strangest detail in the cabin comes straight from that number. They said a mechanical needle, a physical object with, ironically, inertia of its own, couldn't track this engine. So the LFA got no traditional tachometer at all. Instead, there's a digital display, a color-shifting screen with a motorized ring around it that repaints the rev counter faster than any needle could swing. Now, I'll be straight with you. Some people argue other high-revving cars kept their needles just fine, and that Lexus partly did this for theater. Maybe, but look at the interior of any LFA, and you're looking at the same statement either way. This engine moves faster than the instruments of the analog era. The dashboard itself is the receipt. But the real breaking point didn't happen at 9,000 RPM. It happened in a meeting room. 5 years into development, the LFA existed, running prototypes, engineered around an aluminum chassis, already testing at the Nürburgring. And the team looked at the numbers and admitted the unthinkable. Aluminum wasn't good enough. The engine had been starved of every gram, and the car around it was still too heavy. So Toyota did something almost no manufacturer would ever do. They threw the car away and started again in carbon fiber. Not by buying panels from a supplier. They built the capability in-house, including a laser-monitored circular loom, a machine that weaves carbon strands like fabric, and at the time, one of only 2 machines like it in the world. The result? A structure that's 65% carbon composite, saving around 100 kilograms over the aluminum design. The cost? Years of delay and an engineering bill nobody dared publish. And you can trace the agony in the timeline. First prototype running in 2003, Nürburgring testing by 2004, a concept shown to the public in 2005, and then the production car didn't arrive until the very end of 2009. The world saw this car, and then waited half a decade while Toyota quietly tore up its own homework and retaught itself how to build it out of woven thread. A decade for one car. Any rational company kills this project in that meeting. Toyota's bosses protected it instead, because by then, the LFA had stopped being a product. It was a dare. Now for what it sacrificed, and the genius hiding inside. The obvious sacrifice was money. 20 cars a month, hand-built, at a price that reportedly didn't cover what each one cost to create. But the engineering sacrifices are sneakier, and one of them you can spot from the outside. To make a front-engined car balance like a mid-engined one, the team pushed the engine back behind the front axle, and then went further and moved the radiators out of the nose entirely, all the way to the tail. Here's your second check. Look at the back of an LFA. Those big vents at the rear aren't decoration. The car breathes out through its tail, because its cooling system lives where other cars keep their luggage. That's how far they went for weight distribution. And then there's the hidden genius, the part nobody spec'd on paper, the sound. Yamaha's acoustic engineers tuned the intake and the cabin like a musical instrument, feeding 2 octaves of engine noise to the driver through dedicated ducts. Lexus literally ran a TV ad where the LFA's exhaust note shatters a champagne glass. And here's your third check, the easiest one of all. Play any LFA clip on this platform and listen. It doesn't sound like a Ferrari V8, it doesn't sound like a Lamborghini V12. That even-firing 72-degree V10 whale got nicknamed the roar of an angel, and once you've heard it, you can identify an LFA with your eyes closed. They set out to kill inertia. They accidentally built the best-sounding road car of all time. And in case anyone thought all that obsession was just art, Lexus built 64 cars with a track package, and in 2011 one of them lapped the Nürburgring in 7 minutes and 14 seconds. At the time, that was the fastest lap ever recorded by a road-legal production car. The dare had receipts. And here's the twist. By every business measure, the LFA failed. It took years to sell just 500 cars. Some sat unsold long after production ended in 2012. The world looked at a $375,000 Lexus and said no thanks. So the story should end there. An expensive dead end. Except, fast forward to today. Those same unwanted cars now trade hands for well over $1 million, multiples of what they cost new. The market spent a decade slowly realizing what Toyota's engineers knew all along, and it gets better. Right now, Toyota is finally building a successor, a new flagship with a twin-turbo hybrid V8 making over 600 horsepower. More power than the LFA, more technology, faster by every number it will ever be measured by. And the reaction from car people everywhere has been the same sentence. But it won't have the V10. Nobody says, but will it lap the Nürburgring quicker? Of course it will. Nobody asks about the horsepower. There's more. The only thing anyone mourns is the one thing progress removed. An engine with no turbos to spool and no batteries to carry. So light on internal inertia that the tachometer had to go digital. Think about what that means. Remove the constraint, the stubborn, money-losing insistence on a naturally aspirated engine with no turbos, no hybrid assistance, nothing between your foot and 9,000 RPM, and you get a better car that everyone already mourns. The constraint wasn't the LFA's weakness. The constraint was the entire point. 500 Lexus LFAs were built between 2010 and 2012, each one hand-assembled, each one reportedly sold at a loss, each one powered by a V10 that Yamaha helped tune like an instrument, and that spins to 9,000 RPM faster than a needle can follow. It set a production car lap record at the Nürburgring. It taught Toyota how to mass-produce carbon fiber, and it proved something genuinely strange: that the world's most rational car company could out-obsess Ferrari exactly once and lose money doing it on purpose. The LFA isn't great despite making no financial sense. It's great because it made no financial sense. Every gram of inertia they eliminated was a decision nobody was forcing them to make. So here's my question for you guys. Toyota's new hybrid V8 successor will beat the LFA in every measurable way. But would you actually take it over the V10? Spec sheet or soul? Let me know down in the comments. And if you like deep dives into the machines that went too far, subscribe. There's a new one every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.